Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kissy. Today I wanted to do a reading, and as I started meditating, I got a lot of a rush of creativity that I wanted to share with you. There's a lot of excitement to share this information with you guys, right? The thing is, when I meditate, certain things kind of pop out, show themselves to me, and it was noteworthy for me. So it took me down this interesting rabbit hole that I was not expecting to dive into, but I guess it was a walkthrough kind of feeling. And so I'm excited to share with you. And I took these notes as they are, so I'll just go ahead and get started. So the term that showed up was performance anxiety. And it is specific and different from social anxiety. My consciousness was aware of social anxiety in a certain context. But to hear the word performance anxiety was so specific to what type of social anxiety it is. So, for example, I also heard Don't Rush Me. It's a song. It's by Taylor Dayne. The lyrics continue to say, I've made that mistake before. This love could be so much more. Okay. Don't rush me. That was in terms of performance anxiety. It's like the issue isn't to be in a social setting. The issue is being rushed to perform an expected character that is a natural thing for you. So when you are natural is when you're at your best performance, when you're naturally being who you are. But when it's an expectation and you have to turn the switch on, so to speak, it becomes almost unnatural, which can create performance anxiety. So, I define performance as, now obviously you could go to the definition and find a very formal explanation, but this is me walking, like I said, it felt like a walkthrough. What precisely is performance? Well, it's something you do that feels as if it's a mask or a wardrobe or a character. It's something that you do that is natural to you. Yet the awareness of the other's expectation of that identified mask or character makes it uncomfortable to relax into the experience. So it's like, as a kid, for example, you might do something that's natural, right? And it gets a lot of praise and a lot of attention, and it's well liked. Suddenly you're in a setting where you're at a gathering with, people that are strangers to you, and all of a sudden you're asked to, do that thing that you do. And it becomes like, I'm shy now, because it's like, in this environment you're not inclined to perform, because it would be a performance in this environment. You're being asked to, hey, turn on, press play, do that thing you do. And it's like, wait, but the thing I do is not a performance. The thing I do, I'm doing when it's inspired. And so I feel like, I don't know why, it just felt a lot of heart chakra. like a release, a heart chakra release. Okay. So the song Don't Rush Me came in, and it's by Taylor Dayton. In this context, it's in regards to a relationship. But this comes more out of a fear. I've made that mistake before. So it's like, don't rush me. I made that mistake before. Therefore, I need some time to really process if I want to go into this dynamic with you, because I rushed in before. I performed on a whim, and it didn't lead to a good place. So from that injury, from that lesson, or from that pain, or from that experience, I would be inclined to hold off or push back or resist jumping in the pool, which is what I would naturally do, what I'm inclined to do when I'm not performing, right? It's not a performance, it's what comes naturally. But if what comes naturally leads to jumping like the fool into the unknown, in that trust and faith that this is going to be beautiful and perfect and well received and loved, and all of the great feelings that we get for being who we are, can we actually relax and be who we are if there's an anxiety to what feels like a performance as opposed to being yourself? Because it's like, people will project. All right, let's move forward. Here it says there's one's own vulnerabilities to consider, one's own expectations, based on self-awareness and ability to know one's own abilities. An ability to know one's own abilities. And the level of confidence within the scope of the performance and experience with the specified audience. So, I had to feel my way through that one, because it felt like when the mind is speaking to the emotions, and the mind has a language that is hard to put into words when it comes to the experience of let's call it the depth of what the experience is supposed to feel like, or actually, like, what's the closest to the truth of what that is. It's like, I guess there's more depth to certain characteristics than we allow ourselves to accept or see or receive. I don't know. Anywho, so walking through this, there's one's own vulnerabilities to consider. So when it comes to what causes the anxiety to perform, because the ego is performing. The ego has been conditioned to be a role from its earliest conception, right? As a child, in the family, the role that you play there, and then in your young adulthood, the role that you learn to take on, and then adulthood is the role that you accept responsibility for, and then you kind of get to a place where it's like, all of those are roles in my character. But I don't have to be. There's a level of awareness of the expectations that are put on you as a character by those that surround you. So it's like based on what your performance has been, based on who you have been, based on what you do, and based on what we know you're capable of being, all of that, it's like, can you perform for us? So if you're like, if you bring a lot of like high vibes to the party, there's an expectation that you perform. God forbid you show up to the party and you're not performing. You're no longer the entertainment. It's just funny because you realize when there's an expectation for you to be the clown of your social circle and you you show up like the Gemini twins, right? The mask that it has the dark side to it. You have the happy side to it. It's like people want your comedy. They don't want your shadow. They don't want your darkness. They don't want your drama. And that's what you have to you have to laugh at it, because I can laugh at it with myself, right? I can say, oh, all this all this performance and all this hoorah that I gotta do to fit into what you deem to be qualifying me to be considered valuable. It's like, who the fuck are you? kind of energy. But when you see another person kind of go through that, and you see that light turn on, like, what the fuck? Why have I been performing for you when just being who I am is so much better, number one. And number two, you don't have to like it. It's a choice. You either accept it, but you gotta accept, it's like, you have to accept the whole character. You cannot just accept the, I think there's a sense of feeling boxed into, like, for example, the characters on this game board. I can identify with Miss Scarlet being an Aries, Libra cusp, or not cusp, polarity. Out of all the characters there, she represents those two characters best. She's got the beauty of Venus. She also has the independence of Mars, and the red, and the vixen. So you can see the polarities of, you know, there's a confidence, but that confidence came from what makes that character what it is the depth of experience, ability to influence comes from their depth. But people see just the superficial and neglect to dive deep into some of these characters, which is what makes them so seductive in the first place, or so appealing in the first place, or so charming, or so, that's the performance we're talking about. Like, people want to show off good energy. People want to show off beauty. They want to show off charm, prestige, and accolades, and those kinds of things. Like, and it's like clout chasing, or there's a sense of people latching onto that kind of energy for clout chasing. Whatever it is, it's almost like I rub shoulders with them, therefore I'm in the in crowd. It's a weird kind of vibe. But all of it, when you see that your character which is kind of like a enjoyment for someone, and then they want to take that and share with others. It's one thing to want others to experience that enjoyment, but it's another thing to ask for that to be kind of put on display for others without and then being resentful if it doesn't. It's like the expectation. It's like, let's say you have your favorite film director makes, like, I think that happened, let's say, with M. Night Shyamalan. He did the first movie that was really great, The Sixth Sense. It was so highly praised. It was so great. So can you imagine the performance anxiety that comes from having made, a second project that didn't that the expectations were not met by the audience. So what would have happened there is, to me, I believe, that where one is a passion project, the first one being a passion project, the effort, the depth, the detail that went into that performance, which wasn't a performance, it was the experience was unfolding on its own. And that's what became such a bright, such an awareness for the audience. It's what captured so many of the audience. But then you have the subsequent production, which was now with awareness and a pressure to succeed equally. There's now the sense of competition, a sense of awareness, a sense of what is expected, because you know what you did, what made it so great. You understand what made it so great, but now you're expected to produce the same results. Anyway, why the hell did I even walk into that storyline? Listen, I'm gonna say what comes through simply because I was told that it's the best way to share the message, because you never really know unless you're doing or saying exactly like it resonates on a different level when it comes from the step-by-step experience versus a concept. So someone can talk to you and they only catch you in the head. In other words, they get your attention, but you don't feel them. While someone else might only feel you but not get you mentally. Then you get to a place where it's like, not just I feel you, I understand you, but now I know you. And there's a certainty of I know you. And this has to do with ourself, the relationship that we have with ourself first. Because when we're there and we know who we are, we know when we're feeling performanced, or when, you know what I mean, like influenced to perform. You can feel yourself shifting to conform based on the expectation. So like, you start a business with a mindset, and you think, oh, you have an idea of what a salesperson is, and then you go there and you perform like a salesperson, but you're not making sales. And then you take time and you learn the skills and whatever, and then you start to understand the process. And when you understand the whole process, then you go in and you start doing things your own way, and you're like, the goal is this, I might as well do it. And you eventually create your own system, and it starts to work for you. And when that system works for you, That's what makes you the star. The system that you create is what makes you look. When you know how to succeed for yourself and you're not performing a chart of lists of things that you're supposed to be that, that's what makes you successful in your own lane. Jeez. Even that, I hope I'm making sense to at least one human being on this earth. At least one. That can say, yes, girl. I know exactly what you mean. All right. Performance. I think we read all that. Yes, we did. So I gave examples: auditioning for a play, recording an audio, taking a picture, first date, first encounters with same scenarios but different cast. So it's like a matter of I think what creates the most anxiety would be a first encounter, which many times our first encounters happen in a similar scenario, so you can eliminate a lot of anxiety when you're aware of the scenario being kind of similar. So this could be like, oh, I've applied for jobs before, same scenario. But then suddenly the scenario changes and it's like you're applying for a job in a whole other way. And it's like, wait, what is this? Like you're being assessed in a whole different way, or you're being evaluated in an entirely other way. This could be in the dating scene. You dated and then suddenly you were, in a very serious commitment. Then all of a sudden you're back on the dating scene after years of not having been on the dating scene, and you're like, holy shit, it's being done so different. The dating scene is not what it used to be. It's like one of those kinds of shifts that it's like the scenario has changed. So performance anxiety would be like a first encounter in anything, right? It's like, okay, you can expect some anxiety on something that is a first for you, something you've never done before, something you've never experienced before. Whatever that is, it's a new experience. So of course it's going to bring a certain level of anxiety. But then when you realize, oh, it's the scenario is the same, at least that eliminates, you're like, okay, you can get a certain level of comfort when you're in kind of, it's like, well, for example, I've had a baby before, so it's like, to have a second child, yes, you've been there before, so you're like, okay, I know sort of what to expect. It's not the same anxiety as the first time when you've never been through it, and then you're like, you really don't know what to expect. Like, you have no idea at all. So the second time around, you feel a certain performance anxiety that comes from knowing what you've been through. So cut yourself some slack if you do feel a certain sense of. Now, this kind of made me laugh because I also kind of, there's like the little evil dark side that pops in and out every once in a while that wants to turn something simple, like in general, performance anxiety, but some people will hone in on that term and how it's been used in society, mostly to describe issues of the sexual nature of men, right? At least in society, you kind of, whenever you hear that term, it's often referred to when discussing that. I don't think there's many people as a whole, really studying theater, I guess, because I would say that this is a topic for theater. But anyway, what in the world? Okay, performance anxiety, yeah. So it's not, yes, it is specific because it's like a man can, let's take it down that rabbit hole. oh gosh, so social anxiety. Let's say a man is, very confident socially. Like, he could talk to women, he could talk to people. He's very, goes out on South Beach. He's going through the scene, the restaurants, the clubs, the shops, the games, whatever. It's all, he's comfortable in a social setting. But there's something specific that, let's say his boys might be like, yeah, you're good at this, go ahead and do that. It's like there's an expectation for him to behave. It's giving me the scene from the movie Grease when they bring Sandy after the game. She was cheerleading. They bring her over as her little crew. What are they? The pink ladies or something. They're like a little wannabe club of. Anyways, they bring her over to see him, and he's hanging out with his boys and his friends or whatever. And there's a certain way that he was around his friends that he wasn't with her. And she's describing him like he's, this whole person that when they realize that she's talking about him, Danny, they realize, oh shit, that's nothing like he is around us. So it makes them very curious to discover, to watch them at play with each other, when it's like just to make him uncomfortable. The women are doing it, or at least the main the leader of the little group. Her intention was, I'm going to bring her over to him, and I want to see that interaction play out, how he's going to act around his friends. And let's see if he's man enough to act the way he was with her privately in front of all of us. Because not only was she, it's almost like she wanted to open up Sandy's eyes, but at the same time, there was a rivalry between her and Sandy. And the rivalry was that she had been with Danny. Because she and Danny had already kind of had a fling, and obviously it was like one of those friends with benefits kind of thing where nobody gives a shit. It's like, we're just gonna kind of go our separate ways, and now I'm gonna be dating your best friend. Like, her values were a certain way, where Danny didn't looked at them like, he didn't have to treat her with any level of sweetness or effort that he put in with Sandy, based on what Sandy was saying. So Rizzo, that was her name. Rizzo wanted to put Sandy to the test too, to see is she just making up stories about this guy, or is he really that way? So when she puts them to see that they're each at each other's school, they thought they weren't going to see each other again. So instinctually, when he sees her, he's excited. Instinctually, he's like, I thought you were going, I don't remember what the storyline was, but basically they thought they would never see each other again. What are you doing here? And she's like, well, we're transferred over, so we get to stay here, or this is where we live now. And he's so happy, and then all of a sudden he realizes, oh shit, they're all watching me. Performance anxiety. And he's like, oh yeah, well, that's cool, baby. That's cool. And he starts acting like he's too cool for, to be so gushy. What a buffoon. Lord have mercy. So now his friends, they're like expecting him to be the dog that he was to Rizzo, or they're kind of like the player type. And she's looking at him like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you such a douchebag? Why are you being so, like, who are you? Like, this is not the same person that I know. So it's like that aspect the real aspect of who he is, when he's vulnerable, when he's himself, when he's just being, in his highest state. When she's realizing, what the hell am I dealing with? Like, is this actually who you are? Because you're acting like a very foolish. You're acting foolish. So she leaves pissed off, and you can see the remorse in his face and with her disappointment of him. But he takes a glance at Rizzo, and Rizzo's looking at him like, got ya, bitch. She's looking at him like, you know you're a dick because you know how you feel about her. Rizzo knows the true him because she's been with him. But because she had no strings attached to him, they didn't have to get gushy. Rizzo intuitively understood him. She intuitively knows his, vulnerable side because it's her too. They've been like Sandy. Sandy's just on the sleeve, innocent that way. They have that innocence very well hidden, very well protected. So in their eyes, Sandy's just being herself. Meanwhile, they're putting on a performance. You see what I mean? Right there, he was putting on a performance for his friends. But when he was with Sandy, he might have felt like he was putting on a performance. Even though he was being himself with her, it felt like a, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. Because of who he's been around his friends. He's like, oh my God, this isn't me. It's like, it's me, but it's not me. Like, how am I so easily this person? This aspect of myself with this person? Like, she brings out the innocent, the romantic, the child, the softer side of him. And it's almost like he comes to realize how much of a dichotomy he has to live now that she's in his space, around his territory. Oh, Lordy. Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. I think that's all, folks. I think that's all. Is there anything else I wanted to say about this? Okay. Well, I wasn't even sure where this was going to go in terms of, I guess I figured I would do a reading. Lately I've been thinking I'm going to do a reading, and then it's like it leads me down this path, and the more I allow it to just say what it needs to say, do what it needs to do, Yep, I think that's all, folks. I'll come back soon. Take care.